There is sand in your beef. Not poetically, not as a figure of speech. Silicon dioxide, the scientific name for sand, is a listed ingredient in Taco Bell's seasoned beef. That's the #1 chain on this list. And once you know it's there, you start asking a question that's harder to stop asking. What else got in while you weren't looking? Here's what took me a long time to figure out. This isn't one chain making a mistake. 12 chains on this list made deliberate decisions, board-approved, attorney-reviewed, shareholder-friendly decisions about what goes into your food. And they counted on one thing that you'd never ask. Every single meal you've eaten at these places, someone at a conference table already knew what was in it and decided that was fine. By the end of this, you'll know which 12 to avoid, the 4 that actually earned your trust, and the private equity angle that explains why so many of these places feel different from how they used to. Let's get into it.
Before we name names, follow the money. 6 of the 12 worst chains on this list are controlled by just 3 corporations. Restaurant Brands International owns Burger King and Popeyes. Inspire Brands, backed by Roark Capital, owns Sonic and Arby's. Yum Brands owns KFC and Taco Bell. That's 6 chains, 2 drive-thrus each, 1 investment philosophy running all of them. By law, by charter, by the terms of every shareholder agreement, their primary obligation is financial return. Not clean kitchens, not quality sourcing. The number. Every time you thought you were choosing between competitors, you were choosing between subsidiaries of the same calculation. Different logos, different mascots, one bottom line. Keep that in your head as we go through these.
Starting at the bottom, number 12, Sonic Drive-In. The roller skates, the cherry limeade, the summer parking lot ritual, Sonic built its entire brand around nostalgia. Here's what that nostalgia is worth to the people who own it now. Inspire Brands, private equity-backed, $13 billion in annual revenue. Same parent as Arby's and Buffalo Wild Wings. The playbook is identical across all of them. Acquire a trusted brand, compress operating costs, let the emotional memory carry the slack. County health inspectors pulled a Sonic location where the shake mix was sitting at 49 degrees Fahrenheit. The safe cold holding limit is 41. That's the bacterial growth zone, and that mix was already on its way to your cup. A 2024 National Antibiotic Scorecard gave Sonic an F, not a D, an F. Couldn't meet a basic written standard for beef, pork, or turkey sourcing. One Florida location got an emergency shutdown order. Repeat violations. The kind of paperwork that means someone was already warned and nothing changed. A medium cotton candy cream slush, 750 calories, 124 grams of carbs, 0 protein, 0 fiber. Sugar in a cup, straw inserted, handed to you with a smile. The cherry limeade still tastes exactly like it always did. That's the entire strategy. Number 11, Wendy's. Fresh, never frozen. It's on the cups, it's in the commercials. It's not just a slogan. It was marketed as a promise. So here's the question nobody asked. What exactly does that promise cover? The beef patties. In North America, that's it. The chicken isn't covered, breakfast isn't covered, eggs aren't covered, the pre-prepped, pre-packaged produce isn't covered. Fresh, never frozen applies to maybe a third of the menu, and Wendy's built their entire brand identity around it. A 2024 lawsuit alleged an 11-year-old suffered permanent neurological damage after eating at a Wendy's franchise. The inspection report for that location listed 17 active violations. Moldy food, dirty utensils, sanitizer below minimum standards, produce with no date labels. 17, while fresh, never frozen was on the sign outside. Wendy's was also implicated in the 2022 E. coli romaine lettuce outbreak. 2 years later, pulled onions during the Taylor Farms contamination. The same recall that hit McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, and Taco Bell simultaneously. Never frozen has never once meant never contaminated. Fresh, never frozen. What a thing to put on a sign.
Number 10, Burger King. The flame that isn't. Picture a factory floor, a conveyor belt, Beef patties moving through a processing system, not over a flame, but through a machine that applies artificial smoke flavor and presses grill marks in. The marks are real. The flame that supposedly made them? That's the commercial. In 2024, 75 people across 13 states got sick from an E. coli outbreak traced to Taylor Farms yellow onions, the same onions on Burger King's burgers. They pulled onions nationally, not because their kitchen caught it first, because their supply chain was already the problem. Restaurant Brands International posted $8.4 billion in revenue in 2024. They returned $1 billion of that to shareholders the same year. $1 billion back to investors, while their beef supply was earning a failing grade on every national antibiotic scorecard that tracks this. Every single one. A South Florida Burger King was shut down in August 2024. Cold foods at unsafe temperatures, evidence of rodents in the building. Atlanta location scored a 68, missing food safety manager certification, garbage piled near the dumpsters. These aren't rogue franchises. These are predictable outcomes when the primary obligation runs upward to shareholders instead of downward to the kitchen.
Number 9. Arby's. They have the meats. Here's what's in them. There's an enzyme called transglutaminase. The food industry calls it meat glue. It takes scraps, offcuts, the pieces that don't qualify for standard ground beef, and binds them into a single uniform block. Looks solid. The problem isn't the texture, it's the math. When you combine separate pieces of meat, you multiply the surface area available for bacterial growth. E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, all of them need surface area. Meat glue gives them more of it. FDA approved, yes. Still a meaningful risk when temperature control slips. And in a high-volume fast food kitchen, temperature control is never guaranteed. Arby's roast beef is processed this way. Former employees describe it arriving in bags, pre-formed blocks that get sliced to order. You're not watching it get carved, you're watching it get unpacked. Arby's is Inspire Brands, same parent as Sonic, backed by Roark Capital. Same ownership, different logos, one set of priorities. The classic roast beef sandwich, over 1,000 milligrams of sodium before the curly fries, the sauce, or the drink. For older adults with kidney disease, phosphate additives, used as preservatives throughout the menu, are significantly harder to process. The health consequences don't show up the night of the meal. They show up later, when it's harder to trace back.
Number 8. Jack in the Box. They learned the wrong lesson. In 1993, Jack in the Box burgers killed 4 children. The E. coli outbreak that followed rewrote federal meat inspection standards. The entire industry had to change. Jack in the Box survived, and here's what they built with everything they learned. The Munchie Meal. Available 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Designed, in their own advertising, explicitly for customers who are intoxicated. Food media described it as engineered for people too impaired to make a good decision. Their own commercials wink at it. This is not a side effect of the business model. This is the business model. Identify the most vulnerable customers at their most compromised moment, build a product line around them, and market to it directly. Former employees describe late-night shifts as the worst environment for food safety in the industry. Fewer staff, higher volume, stretched holding times, fryers running on old oil, grills that don't get cleaned the way the manual requires. That's the kitchen the Munchie Meal customer walks into at 2 a.m. In Las Vegas, inspectors found wasp sewage backing up into a Jack in the Box kitchen. Sewage on the floor. Emergency shutdown ordered. This wasn't 1993. This was recent. Jack in the Box had a choice about what to build after surviving the worst food safety disaster of their era. They had the information. They made their choice. Number 7. Checkers and Rallies. 2 names, 1 problem. They're the same chain. Geography split the branding. The Southeast calls it Checkers. The rest of the country calls it Rallies. The food is identical. So are the inspection records. What health inspectors found across multiple states? Rodent droppings near fry stations. Roach activity in food storage. And the part that matters most? Repeat violations. Same locations, already warned, same problems on the next visit. Because the economics didn't change. Checkers and Rallies is backed by Oak Hill Capital Partners, private equity. Same acquisition playbook you've seen across this entire list. The gap between what franchises are expected to spend on maintenance and what it actually costs to run a clean kitchen, that gap is exactly where the problems live. A combo meal here can carry close to 2,000 milligrams of sodium. The recommended daily limit is 2,300. You've basically used your day before you leave the drive-thru. For immunocompromised adults, a kitchen with documented rodent activity isn't a calculated risk. It's a direct threat. Private equity bought the brand, stripped the margins, and handed you the result through a drive-thru window.
Now the names everyone knows. Number 6, Popeyes. Name a fast food chicken chain that feels more authentically Southern. The red beans, the biscuits, the spice that tastes like someone's grandmother built it in a Louisiana kitchen somewhere. It's a brand built entirely on the feeling of belonging to a place, a tradition, a culture. Now let me tell you who actually owns it. Restaurant Brands International. Headquartered in Toronto, publicly traded, $1 billion returned to shareholders in 2024. The Louisiana Kitchen is a logo. The corporation behind it answers to the Toronto Stock Exchange. A Memphis location was cited for multiple critical violations, including improper hot holding temperatures and pest activity, after a previous inspection had already flagged the same problems. That's not staffing, that's management culture. The chicken arrives pre-battered and frozen. The flavor? MSG and sodium phosphates, layered into the breading specifically to compensate for what industrial chicken lacks on its own. That spice you love? Some of it is chemistry. A 3-piece tender meal carries nearly 1,400 milligrams of sodium, almost a full day's limit, in one box. During the chicken sandwich viral moment, former employees described kitchens pushed past their limits. Holding time stretched, oil changes skipped, chicken sitting longer than it should because there weren't enough hands. The Louisiana branding is doing a lot of heavy lifting. A lot.
Number 5, Dairy Queen. Warren Buffett's chemistry project. You remember the flip, the blizzard held upside down over the counter, proof it was thick enough to stay in the cup. A small ritual, a moment of theater that made you feel like you were getting something real. Here's what Berkshire Hathaway puts in it. Dairy Queen soft serve does not meet the federal minimum standard to be called ice cream. It's legally classified as a frozen dairy dessert. Less real milk fat, more industrial stabilizers, cellulose gum derived from wood pulp, mono and diglycerides, and artificial vanilla where the real thing should be. The Blizzard machine is one of the most consistently flagged pieces of equipment in fast food health inspections nationwide. Improper cleaning, bacterial buildup risk, in the exact product being handed to your grandchildren. A large peanut butter cookie dough blizzard runs over 1,400 calories and more sugar than most doctors would recommend for an entire day, in one cup, flipped upside down and handed over with a smile. The generation that grew up trusting Warren Buffett trusted very few things that reliably. His name is on this chain. His standards are in this product.
Number 4, KFC. The Colonel already told you. Colonel Sanders was obsessive, pressure-cooked, precise timing, 11 herbs and spices he mixed himself and guarded like a state secret. He spent years perfecting the recipe before he sold it. When he finally did sell, when KFC went corporate, he reportedly called the gravy wallpaper paste and said he'd been had. That was 1964. It's gotten worse since. KFC is owned by Yum Brands, same corporation as Taco Bell, the number 1 chain on this list. International supply chain scandals documented in China. Suppliers caught using expired meat. Product past its label date being reprocessed and sent back into the chain. KFC issued statements. The supply chain didn't fundamentally change. A 2023 laboratory analysis found KFC chicken near the top of the industry for advanced glycation end products, compounds that form when protein and fat react under prolonged high heat. These aren't additives. They're what happens when industrial chicken fries in oil that's been running too long at too high a temperature. They accelerate aging, They drive chronic inflammation. They increase cardiovascular and diabetes risk. And they're invisible on the menu board. Worker accounts describe managers directing staff to cook chicken past labeled expiration dates when inventory runs low, to reuse frying oil past safe cycles. The Colonel had opinions about oil temperature. Yum Brands has opinions about margin. Those are not the same obsession.
Number 3. Subway. The healthiest looking chain had the most to hide. You chose Subway because it was the healthy option. That's the entire play. They put it next to gyms and yoga studios. The commercial showed people losing hundreds of pounds eating it twice a day. They built a brand worth billions on the word fresh. So here's the question worth sitting with. What if that was never true? The bread contains azodicarbonamide, a dough conditioner that is also used in the manufacturing of yoga mats and shoe soles. It's banned as a food additive in Europe and Australia. The FDA still allows it here. Subway needed a PR campaign to stop using something other countries banned decades ago. That's not a Subway problem alone, that's a regulatory problem. And the regulator didn't move. The public embarrassment did. Lab tests commissioned by the New York Times found no amplifiable tuna DNA in Subway's tuna samples. A lawsuit followed, alleging the product contained chicken, pork, and cattle DNA. The case was dismissed, but dismissed is not answered. In 2023, Roark Capital acquired Subway, the same Roark that owns Arby's and Sonic. The healthy option chain now belongs to the same private equity portfolio as the meat glue chain and the sugar bomb slush chain. Subway's processed cold cuts are classified by the World Health Organization as Group 1 carcinogens when consumed regularly. Group 1, the same category as tobacco, not linked to, not associated with in some studies. Cause of cancer. That's the word. The healthiest looking chain on this list had the most to hide, and they knew it. Number 2. McDonald's. Infrastructure scale failure. Here's how ammonium hydroxide beef treatment works. You take lower grade beef scraps, the trimmings that don't qualify for standard ground beef. You treat them with ammonia gas to kill the bacteria that accumulates in that kind of material. Then you incorporate that into the blend. Not a contamination event, not an accident. Tuesday. McDonald's quietly phased it out when it became public. Not because it became illegal, but because once people knew, they didn't want to eat it. That was the standard they were working to. In 2024, 75 people across 13 states got sick from an E. coli outbreak linked to quarter pounders, traced to slivered onions from Taylor Farms, the same supplier simultaneously sending product to Burger King, Taco Bell, and KFC. The fries have 19 ingredients. The shakes have over 50. The nuggets contain dimethylpolysiloxane, an anti-foaming agent also found in silly putty. That's not hyperbole. That's the ingredient list. But the scariest thing about McDonald's isn't the ingredient list. It's the scale. They serve billions of customers. Every systemic failure doesn't stay local. It scales. A contaminated supplier at McDonald's isn't a restaurant problem. It's an infrastructure problem. McDonald's doesn't make you sick in a single visit. It's a slow process. And the companies profiting from what a decade of that does to your body are not the ones handing you the bag through the window. Number 1. Taco Bell. Sand in the beef and everything else. Silicon dioxide, scientific name for sand. Listed ingredient in Taco Bell's seasoned beef. Not trace contamination, not an accident. Listed. The beef is approximately 88% beef. The remaining 12% includes oats, maltodextrin, modified cornstarch, soy lecithin, and silicon dioxide. A lawsuit alleged the meat content was too low to legally qualify as beef under USDA definitions. Taco Bell fought it publicly, won the dismissal, and quietly reformulated the recipe shortly after. You don't reformulate a recipe you're proud of. The cheese sauce, water is the first ingredient. Vegetable oil is second. Modified starch is third. Cheddar cheese is fourth. Multiple locations were closed in 2023 following norovirus outbreaks traced directly to employee hygiene failures inside the restaurants. Not a distant supplier, the people making the food. And now close the loop. KFC and Taco Bell,
two of the worst chains on this entire list. Same parent corporation, Yum Brands. Same sourcing philosophy, same labor philosophy, same quality.
Now, the other half. The four that actually earned it. Number 4, Sweetgreen. The ingredient list reads like a recipe, not a regulatory filing. Seasonal sourcing, supplier transparency listed in-store, no artificial colors or preservatives. In January 2025, they removed seed oils entirely and switched to extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil. Not announced it as a future goal, did it. They're the only major chain that can say that. It's not cheap, it's not everywhere, and the wrong dressing will surprise you on the calorie count. But the Sweetgreen bowl is a template worth stealing. Greens, whole grain, simple protein, olive oil, acid. Build that at home for a fraction of the price. Their best product might not even be on the menu. It's the idea. Number 3, Chipotle. In 2015, they caused one of the most public food safety disasters in fast casual history. E. coli, norovirus, salmonella, multiple states, congressional testimony, stock craters. And then they did something almost no chain caught in a scandal has ever done. They actually fixed it. High-resolution food safety cameras, DNA testing of ingredients before they enter the kitchen, third-party verified supplier audits, no added colors, flavors, or preservatives anywhere on the menu, antibiotic-free meat from farms with documented animal welfare standards, a guacamole recipe with 6 ingredients. Every chain on the worst list issued a statement and continued as before. Chipotle proved the response to a disaster doesn't have to be a press release. Number 2, Chick-fil-A. You already have concerns. The factory sourcing, the 2024 Polynesian sauce recall over allergen mislabeling, and those belong in the conversation. What else belongs there? For years, Chick-fil-A held a no antibiotics ever commitment across their entire chicken supply. They implemented it, verified it. It was the most credible position any major chain had taken on the issue. Then, in 2024, they walked it back under industry pressure. They had the gold standard. They gave it up. What they still do right: waffle fries with 3 ingredients: potato, oil, salt. Lemonade, fresh squeezed daily from real lemons. Chicken, hand-breaded in the restaurant, never pre-frozen before cooking. No added MSG or artificial preservatives in the nuggets. And operationally, Chick-fil-A runs one of the tightest kitchens in the industry. They've led fast food in customer satisfaction scores for over a decade by a meaningful margin. At this scale, you cannot fake quality across thousands of locations for that long. It eventually shows in the data, one way or another. Number 1, In-N-Out Burger. Think about what fast food felt like before private equity, before shareholder return presentations and sourcing philosophy meetings. When fresh meant fresh. Not fresh in the legal sense we've carefully chosen to define it. In-N-Out never left that moment. No freezers, no microwaves, no heat lamps. The beef is 100% USDA ground chuck, delivered fresh daily from their own facilities. 0 additives, 0 fillers, 0 preservatives. Buns baked without preservatives. Fries hand-cut from whole potatoes, cooked in pure sunflower oil on site. Milkshakes made with real ice cream and sugar, nothing else. The menu has barely changed since 1948. Every chain on the worst half of this list answers to someone else's financial return. Restaurant Brands International, Yum Brands, Roark Capital, Berkshire Hathaway, Inspire Brands. These corporations don't wake up thinking about your food. They wake up thinking about their number. In-N-Out is privately owned. It always has been. It answers to a quality standard set by the family that built it. Not a board, not a private equity firm, not a shareholder who bought in last quarter. When you spend money at In-N-Out, you're not funding a buyout. You're funding a burger. That's it.
Here's what you do with this. The gap between the chains that answer to quality and the ones that answer to profit, that's the only thing you need to understand about fast food in America. You now know something that most people eating at these places right now don't. That's not a small thing. The safest meal is still the one you make yourself, with ingredients you chose from a store you vetted in a kitchen you control. But for everyone eating fast food 2, 3, 4 times a week because life is busy and options feel limited, use this. Spend it differently. Stop giving the worst list your money and start thinking about where the rest of it goes. Fast food doesn't have to be a slow disaster. It just usually is. Drop the chain you're never going back to in the comments. I'll be reading every single one.